Vegas already believes in Pete Golding and Ole Miss, and Greg Sankey, well, he might be thinking of something bigger.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a former 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're proud to be a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in America. That's because of fans like you taking in content like this, and thank you very much for that. On today's show, Vegas likes Ole Miss under Pete Golding. Greg Sankey did not say no to SEC Breakaway talk, and we're going to preview what you need to watch for as spring practice begins. All of that and more in today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all of the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our everydayers who make this show what it is, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase. So going back to last November and December when Lane Kiffin skedaddled down to LSU and he wanted to go do whatever he's going to do, whatever, that's fine. The question came out to everybody is, how will Ole Miss be without Lane Kiffin? That was immediately the narrative that went on. Even through the playoffs that you could see with Ole Miss winning games in the playoffs is like, how will Ole Miss be in 2026 without Pete Golding? Or without Lane Kiffin, with Pete Golding. And they were like, in the playoffs, well, you still had Charlie Weiss. I mean, that's just like having Lane Kiffin. It's the same thing. That's like a hive mind. So what would it look like? Well, Vegas released their opening line for the Louisville Cardinals game on September 6th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC from Nashville, Tennessee. Ole Miss is favored by 8.5 points. And everybody's going to say, okay, that's pretty good. How good is Louisville? Well, they're pretty good. I think Jeff Brom's team has won 9 games each of the year he has been in charge. He is an offensive mind. He is a coach that kind of cut his teeth, so to speak, under Bobby Petrino. They run a lot of the same stuff. When Petrino was at Louisville, I think he might have been a quarterback and all of that. But the important thing is Ole Miss is favored by 8.5 points. The over-under is at 52.5, and they like what they see. They look at the talent on Ole Miss's roster when they look at what's going on, and they think that it has a chance to be pretty good, and it does, if we're going to be honest. With Trinidad Chambliss, potentially the best quarterback in college football, with Kewan Lacy, potentially the best running back in all of college football, with Lukas Carneiro, the best kicker in all of college football. And everybody's going to say, kicker, Steve, come on. You know, if you get to the 40-yard line, you're pretty much assured 3 points. That's a weapon. And if you have a weapon like that, you need to shout it out. And then you look at players like William Echols, Suntarine Perkins, and Jay Crawford, who is the transfer that came in from Auburn, who's going to have a massive impact of what's going on. Edwin Joseph, who I think is going to be a strong safety ready to go. And then the young guys. I think the young guys in fall camp or spring camp are going to be fighting for legit playing time. I think Ladarian Clardy, who played a decent amount as a true freshman in the playoffs a year ago, I think a spring will do him a world of good. And he could potentially be a free safety on down the line. But a lot of players got brought in for a specific reason. We're going to talk about all of that in just a little bit when we talk about spring practice objectives and what we want to see in spring practice. And I give you 3 things that Ole Miss is going to be looking for to prevent them from dropping into the hole that everybody just assumes they're going to drop into. Vegas thinks Ole Miss is going to be pretty good this year. They have them at, I think, 30-1 for the national championship, like number 12 in the odds. You have one of the top Heisman vote getters in the country coming back, and one of the favorites for this year's Heisman Trophy. I think Trinidad finished 8th in the Heisman poll, and then there's Kewan Lacy, who would have won the Doak Walker Award a year ago if he had been advertised at all, which he wasn't, because that would raise up his value, and he could not go to LSU at that point. So all of that stuff is silly, but Vegas thinks this Ole Miss football team is going to be good, and they should think that. I've been telling everybody pretty consistently over the course of the last couple of weeks that Ole Miss has the top quarterback, running back, and kicker in the entire country. And whenever you have those positions filled, those are positions that affect winning. You have a much easier chance of what's going on. And I think Pete Golding sees that too, because that's the reason that he did all the work on the defensive side of the ball that he did. If they're going to score 30 points a game, they're not going to lose games. That's the goal. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated. I'm saying the idea is if we get to 30, we are going to win the football game. And Ole Miss did work getting zero techniques and paying decent amount of money, linebacker, all three levels of the defense with elite transfer level players and some homegrown guys that we need to shout out a little bit. Vegas knows that William Echols is coming back. And everybody's going to say, okay, William Echols, all right. Well, William Echols, Sugar Bowl defensive MVP, just absolutely dominated the Georgia Bulldogs. Just pushed them around from the defensive line position. I think he had 3 pass breakups in that game. He was absolutely a menace chasing Gunnar Stockton, who is a very good player, by the way. He has my full respect. But him coming back and the idea that we have, the Ole Miss fan base has, that hasn't necessarily permeated nationally yet, that Will Echols is not far from being Walter Nolan. And Will Echols becoming Walter Nolan takes this Ole Miss defense to 2024 level as opposed to what they are now. It's interesting. It's fun to think of whenever you have a 3 technique and a 0 technique that's going to demand double teams, and hopefully you have defensive ends that can get to the quarterback. That's the plan. That's what's been recruited. That's what our roster looks like. This is a more talented roster than the 2025 team. Vegas sees that. And Vegas thinks that Ole Miss is going to beat a very good Louisville team by more than a touchdown on a neutral field. That's the long and the short of all of this. They think that Ole Miss is going to win by more than a touchdown on a neutral field against a very good Louisville team. Remember, Louisville a year ago defeated Miami. That happened. I watched it with my own eyes. This is a good team. Jeff Brom, who was known at Purdue as the spoiler makers, is kind of bringing that over to Louisville as well. And they do a really good job of preparing. They do a really good job of kind of making this interesting of what it could be. And I'm excited about this game. I love this matchup. I liked it in 2021 when Ole Miss went to Atlanta and won the game. I was a fan of it then. I like it when Ole Miss plays in Louisville. Louisville is at Mississippi High School. So Vegas being as high on Ole Miss it's not anything new to me because I've been doing that for weeks at this point. It is nice to get confirmation, though, from outside sources of people that has money riding on these games. Ole Miss being an 8.5-point favorite over the Louisville Cardinals, that's something to grin at. That's something to be happy with. That is something to take the next step. Pete Golding is going to be fine at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to be fine, and they're going to contend for the SEC championship and the playoff this year. They have all the talent in the world. They need to make that happen. So Ole Miss has a few things that must get fixed this spring. And they're not complicated, but they're absolutely mandatory if Pete Golding wants this team competing for a title. We'll explain about that next.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated St. John's 85-49 on Sunday at Madison Square Garden, extending its winning streak to 47 games. The Huskies capped a perfect 31-0 regular season, including 20-0 in the Big East. UConn is winning by nearly 38 points per game, the third largest average margin in Division I history. Since 1999 to 2000, UConn has 9 undefeated regular seasons, as many as all other programs combined, and has turned 6 of those into national championships. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, the biggest stretch in college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and unforgettable moments that everybody's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, well, that's bucket list stuff. The hard part, though, is actually getting tickets. Long queues, prices jumping around, and surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here is the best part. Fees are baked into the price that you're going to see. So what you see is what you're going to pay, period. Zone deals let you pick the section also and save even more while Game Time selects the seats. And I love being able to follow teams in the app and get alerts when new deals drop. No stress, no guesswork, just smooth experiences from start to finish. That is exactly what you want during the busiest part of the season. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. If you've been thinking about joining the Everydayer Club, now is the time. Seriously, right now. Again, you get ad-free shows and access to a group chat on Discord. Also, our subtext group is going to grow by football season. We're going to figure out how to maximize that as well. And if you signed up before the NCAA tournament tips off, you can get into our Everydayer Club bracket pool on Discord for a chance to win some Locked On merch. That should be a lot of fun. And bonus, you get to beat me. And anytime you beat me, that's probably a pretty cool thing, right? Right now, if you can use code MARCH, MARCH, to get your first month free, head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or tap the link down in the show notes for more. All right, so we're getting ready for spring practice at Ole Miss. I think the 23rd is the date that released out to me. I am expecting that Thursday and Friday or something like that, the two of the acclimation days that are just helmets, they get those out of the way next week. That is what I'm expecting. I haven't heard that, but that's generally what they do. And whenever they start practice for real. So what are the expectations for Ole Miss going into spring practice? The expectations, offensive tackles will be the story of this Ole Miss football team. If you have a problem at tackle, you're going to have a problem throughout the whole season. It's going to make it more difficult. You're good at tackle, you're going to win a lot of games, and you're going to be at the very minimum in every single one of them. The tackle position is your front door to this offense. Now, I get that Trinidad is very good whenever the coverage breaks down and he can improvise, but you still want to be able to lock things down at the tackle position. Jaden Williams and Diego Pounds did a fantastic job a year ago. But will Tommy Kinsler, will Carius Kern, will Tevez Davis, Cooper Johnson, Connor Howells, whoever is playing on the outside, will they do what is necessary? And will they be a position that you don't think about, or will they be a position that you're constantly worried about? So that is something to watch out. Now, the second thing is running back hierarchy behind Kewan Lacy. Kewan Lacy is the number one. But behind that is going to be an absolute knife fight. It's going to be crazy. Mekhi Frazier and Josh Dye transferred in. JT Lindsey transferred in. Shakai Mills-Knight still on campus. A couple of freshmen are available. Demarius Yates, I think is his name. There are a lot of four-star talented backs in the Ole Miss backfield this season. And it is going to be a fight for carries. Last year, Kewan Lacy got 300 carries over the course of the season for 1,567 yards, 24 touchdowns. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that you did not want him to wear down as much as he did, although he didn't wear down at all last season. But you still want a good bit of tread on the tire for him to get to the next level. Frazier, Lindsey, all those guys, Shakai Mills-Knight, they are going to be fighting for positions and carries this spring. I do not expect Kewan Lacy to get 300 carries over the course of the season. I'm expecting, honestly, somewhere around 200. And if you look at John David Baker, what he did at East Carolina, he distributed the backs pretty consistently, even though they went really fast. I was really curious about that. Because one of the things that we talked about is the reason we only played like 5 wide receivers at any time is like they go completely fast. They go so fast that you can't play that many people. Well, you look at John David Baker, who goes faster than Ole Miss. You look at him being able to have 3 or 4 running backs participate. So it'll be up to Frank Wilson and all that. He has a ton of talent in the room. It'll be interesting to see what it happens. And finally, will the Ole Miss safeties be able to play man coverage consistently? And last year, whenever the other team knew that Ole Miss was going to play man coverage, it usually resulted in a big play or a bust. It happened a couple of times. Good players, they tried really hard. Kashina Gushikin got picked on from time to time, being undersized. You have to be in a position to make the safety position work. And Ole Miss went out and got Jonel Aguero and Edwin Joseph and did a lot of work in the transfer portal. But they're also hoping that some high school players that they have developed is going to be ready to go. LaDarian Clardy, who played a lot in the college football playoff. But you also have Keon Young and you have Cortez Thomas, 3 guys that are really good. Young and Thomas played in the Under Armour All-American game. That would not surprise me at all if they were on the field. But with the guys that were brought in the transfer portal, with the development that is happening, I think there's a chance that you're going to see a pretty good back end of the defense. And last year, the safety position was a little bit of a liability at times for Ole Miss, especially in man coverage. This year, it could be a strength, and you can turn that defensive line and those ends loose because this front 7 at Ole Miss, the way it's set up, at least talent, looking at it on paper, they have a chance to be extremely disruptive. Now, I don't know if Blake Purchase can be Princely Amon Mielen, not Prince Will, Princely. I am sure that William Echols can take his step to be Walter Nolan. I'm sure that Cam Franklin can be Jared Ivey if you want to look back to that 2024 defense. I'm sure that Luke Forelli can be the better middle linebacker over TJ Daughtery. I am not sure if Keaton Thomas can do the stuff that Chris Paul did. I don't know, but you might not have to. You're going to be good, but Chris Paul may have been a little bit better of a player of what's going on. Jay Crawford at corner allows you to lock down half the field like they did with Trey Amos. There's a lot of similarities to what they tried to do with this defense to what they tried to do in 2024. Will it work? I'm not sure. But on paper, the talent is there. Absolutely. All right. In our final segment, Greg Sankey was asked about an SEC breakaway, and he didn't quite shut it down. When that happens, you should probably pay attention. We'll talk about that next. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you versus the house. It is you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by the people. You are no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Every event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered future commission merchant and swap firm. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position you have to fill, well, that's still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need to make the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored job helps you reach the people that actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching. That's pretty cool. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. So Greg Sankey was doing his pre-March Madness hit on the Paul Feinbaum show, and Paul Feinbaum asked him pretty much directly, would the SEC break away? Now, what followed after that was about a 5-minute word salad, but the gist of it is he didn't say no. He said he didn't want to, he would prefer not to, but it's a conversation we have to have if the other aspects of the NCAA don't help us out, yada, yada, yada. Basically, he did not shut it down, and he could have. And looking at this thing, the fact that Greg Sankey was willing to address all of this at all says something upon itself. Now, the SEC has lost 3 straight football national championships, and make no mistake, football is the sport that matters in college sports. That has to be irking Sankey a bit, but don't think that what is going on right now has anything to do with that. What is happening right now is in response to the Cody Campbell and the Smash Sports thing with mandatory revenue sharing. They're hoping to get that. Now, there's a bill going to Congress right now that is going to potentially pass some of the provisions of the SCORE Act, which is the antitrust stuff that the NCAA needs. And you're going to have a situation to where revenue pool generation is pooled, but it's not mandatory. It's optional. Now that helps like the Big 12 and the ACC get together, kind of improves what they have going on. That probably helps some of the G5 schools. But as we talked about last week, any type of random or mandatory revenue pooling would result in about a $20 million a year loss from Ole Miss. And that's where it's relevant to you. So I think that at the end of the day, nothing's going to happen potentially. And whenever that happens, then you're going to be dealing with financial fractures, because I talked about last week on this show, when people start coming after your money, they don't stop coming after your money until they get it. So even if you're just managing to kick the can down the road, you're going to have to deal with another way for them to take your money down the road. It's going to happen. So I kind of like the fact that Greg Sankey was willing to admit, hey, we'll go our own way. And what does that mean is what I was thinking. Well, I don't think the SEC in 16 teams is going to separate. I don't think that would be good. I think a national championship would be out of the reach when a regional championship is there. You get the SEC championship. So the only way that there's a breakaway is if there's a power whatever breakaway, power 2.5 breakaway. So in this world, I think the SEC and the Big Ten would break away, plus the 10 other biggest brands in the sport, like Kansas and Arizona. People would be fighting to be a part of this. And the people that can't afford it, well, they'll have to be in the other thing. And that's the kicker for all of this. The argument that most people have on college sports right now in regards to pooling revenue is because they can't afford to do it right now. And them not being able to afford to do it, they have to figure out a way to stay at the top level without putting themselves in financial despair, because the right thing to do is just not spend the money. But if you don't spend the money, you're going to lose, and then you're going to deal with the backlash. The point is, that's the easiest solution to this, is universities living within their means, but that's not going to happen. So we'll see what happens at the end. But Greg Sankey not shutting down, breaking away from the NCAA is at least relevant. This is a guy that is one of the two voices running college football right now. And he is not going to shut that down. I don't think Tony Petitti is going to shut it down, because they are barreling towards this Big Ten and SEC thing that we've been talking about for about a year at this point, to the point where when they come together, you're going to have one like the National League, one like the American League. They're going to compete with each other for a title. It should be a lot of fun. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about the transfer portal all week. Conference breakaway, spring practice, college baseball, all of that's going to be available. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you'll get all the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels as well, so check that out. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we will send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you catch a second listen in Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Both are good options. Hotty toddy, everybody. And spring break is just going along pretty well. We've hit hump day of spring break. We will talk to you tomorrow. Hotty toddy, everybody.